Welcome back, everybody, to the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. I had an amazing conversation with Tommy from Beats Antique. If you haven't listened to Beats Antique or you don't know that group, definitely check them out. Tommy also produces under the name Sidecar Tommy. He's known for creating beats and for his amazing drumming skills. He's based in Oakland. He has traveled all over the world, played in all different kinds of music festivals, and has also had collaborations with artists like Bassnectar, The Glitch Mob, Closey, Opio, Balkan Bump, and a whole lot more that I could go on and on about. I really enjoyed our conversation. We talked about a million different things, including mixing for live performance using analog instruments and electronic music elements. We talk about how they curate a great live show. We talk about the importance of being part of a music community, some fun touring stories, how he got caught in a polar vortex on a big tour. We talk about his studio setup for live streaming, what he's been doing lately with that to engage his fans, and his basic studio setup. Really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, if you ever get the chance to check out Beats Antique live, highly recommend it. It's a pretty wild and unique show. Even though I haven't seen them live, I've heard great stories from friends, and I also am planning to do that sometime soon. Real quick, before we jump into all the goodness in today's episode, I want to invite you to join my Discord. Come hang out with me and other people in the community. There's a podcast channel in there, so we can talk about today's episode and other episodes together, nerd out about other music production stuff. And if you want to join the community, then join the server at liveproducersonline.com/discord. If you don't own the latest version of Ableton Live, I'd be happy to hook you up with a special deal. Just go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton, and there's more details there. I hope all of you are staying happy and healthy and safe, making awesome tracks. Be sure to check out the links in the episode notes to follow Tommy and Beats Antique and all the other stuff that I mentioned. And without wasting more time, let's jump into today's episode. You're in Oakland right now, right?
Yeah.
How are things in Oakland?
Things are good. I'm personally feeling like I'm in a great space. I feel like there's been two things happening. There's been like how the world feels, and then there's like how Tommy feels. And I've been feeling a lot better. I've been feeling, I feel like since I started sharing my production flow and stuff like that, like on Twitch, once I started doing that, I feel like I started to feel just more heard, and just more straight up, I just
more engaged, like in a community.
Yeah, just like, well, there's that side of it where it's like I feel like there's people who come and watch every day. I was just talking to them about it today. I was like, you guys are awesome. Like, you showed up, and I really appreciate that. And so it's cool to see the long-term benefits of when you do something kind of every day. Obviously, I think as a musician, I sort of understand that practice mentality, but when it comes to something that maybe I'm not used to doing, that has proven to be a source of positivity for me. And I appreciate the opportunity to have it. And so, and also, I think I was just describing this. It's like, because I'm doing this stream, I feel like I'm putting myself out there to the world in I don't know whether it's a karmic way or whatever, just in an energetic way. And therefore, things are coming back to me, and like this and like other things that are sort of highlighting me. And it's really cool. It's really nice.
Oh, I love that. I don't know. I've always tried to operate under the whole give more than you take, and then just like expecting that to come back to you full circle. I find that's been really true, like just with music and my career and fans, and sounds like maybe the same for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I need to check out some more of your Twitch streams. What's your Twitch account name or your handle?
It's Beats_Antique.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be doing that every day. Come February, I think I'm gonna change it up a little bit and do my own one instead of having it on Beats Antiques one, and just kind of, because I feel like comfortable doing that now.
Sure.
So.
Well, you're like definitely one of the co-founders of Beats Antique, and then you have your Sidecar Tommy project.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got involved, like from the beginning with the music production. You have a badass studio setup going on right now,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm also a drummer, so I feel like we've got things to talk about. I
Yeah, definitely.
How did you first get started in the music thing? Maybe just give us a brief background, and then leading up into obviously Ableton Live when everything in life got better, right? At that point,
Definitely.
Ableton's
I
great.
okay, so my history is basically I was born into music. My two parents were music teachers, performers. They loved music. They taught me about music. They taught me not how to play or sing or any of that stuff. They taught me more about how to feel it, how to be around it, how to, make it part of your life, your everyday life. I didn't realize until I ventured out more away from home once I moved out and stuff and started getting to know other people and realizing not everybody has that situation and that it's really unique. And so I feel super lucky and fortunate to have that background, right? And so everything I've done has been music centered, everything.
That's awesome.
I don't think that there's been a time when I wasn't focused on something that had to do with music. So I started playing piano, and that was more of just like an experimental instrument. And it still pretty much is an experimental instrument for me. I never really took piano lessons. I just sort of listened to stuff and played stuff and wrote songs and funny songs about my cat and about the living room and,
Nice.
stuff like that. And then, once I started really like listening to records on the headphones and stuff, I started to be like, oh, wow, like I really want to play drums. And the drummer at my church who would play, like he was super cool. I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. I want to be like him. And he had this really awesome like gold sparkle drum set. And eventually we bought it from him and I got to have that drum set. That changed my life because I was taking piano lessons from not my mom, who was a piano teacher full time, but like I was taking it from someone else and I didn't really like it. And so I didn't have that connection with her that I had with my mom. And so, but my mom was like, I can't really teach you because it's going to just be too much. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I understand it now a lot.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that she didn't like damage our relationship by being my teacher.
That's hilarious. I relate
Yeah.
to that story. My mom was a piano teacher too, so
Oh, nice. Yeah. So it's funny. It's funny because I feel like that moment that my mom told me about that, I remember crying and being really sad and thinking like, why doesn't she want to teach me? And she was explaining it to me as like gingerly as she could, that it's like, look, it's not going to be fun and easy. Like we have fun and we're easy because we both love the same things. And so I just kind of trusted her and went with it. And I realized I really didn't like piano. And I mean, that was not true. I loved it, but I didn't like what I was having to do. The one cool thing that we did in piano lessons that my teacher had us do was she had us listen to Peter and the Wolf and create. She like wrote a little play, and we each wrote songs for an act of the play, right? For a scene of the play. And so in our piano recital, we would play our songs, and it would be like telling a story. Like the music, like certain instruments would be like, in Peter and the Wolf, certain things have a sound that's like, this is this sound for this character. And so we would do stuff like that for the story that she had. And so I was probably in like third grade. I was just like, wow, this is really cool. This is super cool. And that was like my favorite thing. And then I kept writing, and I would just write songs, like I said, about my cat and about the things around my house and just my friends. And then once I sort of grew out of my adolescence, I got a drum set that was mine that I could actually play I started playing in bands, and me and my friends did stuff in 6th grade.
You're playing bands in 5th grade. That's pretty cool.
Dude, I went to my friend's house to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was like, 5th grade or 4th grade. And his dad was like, Scott tells me you play drums. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, gets his keys out and he unlocks this door, opens the door, turns on the light. And I'm like, oh my God, he's got like a full, amazing bass cabinet with like 7 basses, all like pristine, and a silver drum set, one of those Ludwig Chrome drum sets. I was like, yeah. Oh my God, this is amazing. And he's like, so, can you play a beat? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, can you go doom, doom, and then I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, can you do a fill? I'm like, sure. And he's like, go dooka.
Jamming out right away.
So I went dooka. And when I hit the cymbal, he's just like, bam, bam, bam. And I'm just like, what?
It's your first jam session.
Yeah, like I was just like, it was a Back to the Future moment where the guitar comes in and he blows across the room and stuff.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was like in that moment, I fell in love with bass music, with drums, with bass, with just
awesome
funk and just the rhythm of it all, and like how fun it was, and how I realized at that young age, like he told me what to play and I could play that and hold that down, and that was more important than playing a bunch of shit and taking up a bunch of space. And so it was like something I learned really early from a bass player who's actually like he was like a session bass player in LA, like
that's awesome,
before he moved to Virginia where I lived.
That's cool.
And so he just that was someone, Terry Anderson is his name. That is someone who always was there for me when I had musical questions, when I had challenges, when I got to the point where I was like gonna go to music school. He was there. He was the guy who he's like, you're gonna have to know how to play this. You're gonna have to know how to play this, and I couldn't, and he taught me. I was like, all right. That was like the closest thing to a lesson in modern music that I had. Like I had only studied really classical music, and I was in marching band, symphonic band, orchestra, choir, all the things at school. My mom was like the best, and she still is. And she just retired like last year or the year before the pandemic hit. So it was like, yeah, she'd been teaching for 50 years.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. She
must be a very patient woman.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, she is.
Yeah.
Mom, you're so patient. I love you.
That's great, man.
She's like, yeah, right.
Oh, man.
Well, that was the other side of it, is I got to hear my mom and dad talk about students, or about their day. And I really quickly learned how hard it is to teach.
Yeah, it is.
And how really it's not up to the teacher, it's up to the student. And it's like, if the student doesn't do those things, it's not going to work. Right. So I learned early about that.
Yeah, I definitely think teaching is its own unique skill that a lot of people don't have too, Oh
yeah. Patience is one of them, but it's, I don't think it's a patience of it's like invigorating patience. Like, how is that possible? It's so cool. Cause it's like, really what they're doing is they once they do actually hear that glimmer of something, they're like, focus on that, right? And then it's like, okay, cool. There's something here that we can work on and stuff like that. So to me, I was always asking questions. How am I doing? Yeah. Am I doing this right? And they would always be like, yeah, I mean, you practiced it, so you know it.
Great.
It's fine.
I also
like, okay.
I also would love to hear this cat song that you mentioned twice. I think that would be great. You should pull that back up.
Well, it had definitely some iterations, and at first it was super simple, but then later on in life,
that could be a good TikTok video.
Later on in life, I was like experimenting with things, and me and my sister did some things, and I ended up like having a full conversation with my cat, and
that's not weird though. I talk to my pets all the time. Yeah.
It was weird. But I'll spare the details other than that I made up a really funny song for him. And
I look forward to hearing that someday, hopefully.
yeah, it'll be out,
Awesome.
soon.
Good.
Coming soon.
Spend all your time working on that next year. So at what point did you get into Ableton Live? Like, when did things really start to take off for you?
Well, I think it's important to understand a little bit more of the history. So once I understood more about popular music and stuff like that, and I started to play with other kids, quickly learned when someone else likes something and you've never heard it and how that can totally change your life again. And so I was like, one day this new kid came to school. He was from Philadelphia. It was like the height of breakdancing had just like exploded. And he was like a really badass breakdancer. He could do head spins and stuff. And we were all like, no way, this is cool. Oh. And he came from a different place. So he had a bunch of information to share. And he taught me how to, he realized I played drums. And then he taught me how to make loops on a double cassette deck when I was in 6th grade.
That's cool.
Yeah. I learned how to hack into looping back in the day, and I had no idea what that would lead to, but it certainly got me to listen to other styles of music. I got super into hip hop when it was like just coming up with like some really cool electro hip hop was just blowing up, and so I was checking out all that stuff as well as like the popular music and stuff like that. And so I really got excited about samplers and stuff like that as I got older, and always was like a beat maker in the back of my mind. Once Beastie Boys really started to get going in my head, I think it was Check Your Head came out, and I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. I want to do this. Shortly after that, I moved to Boston and started going to music school. And
you go to Berkeley?
Yeah.
Cool.
And that showed me sort of a bunch of gear. Like I got introduced into all this gear and like studios and all this awesome stuff. And that's when I really started to train my ear to hear the sounds the way they're supposed to be, like the industry sounds, right? Understanding the microphones, preamps, signal flow, all this stuff. But to be honest, like I didn't really want to be an audio engineer. And I wasn't studying audio engineering. I was studying drums, but I was focused on being a studio drummer. So I would always end up in the studios getting called in for student sessions. And so I ended up playing like every night in the studio. And one of my close friends was the guy who had the keys to all the microphones. And so like he would sign out the gear that people would use for the different studios.
That's a good friend to have.
Yeah. And he would also handle the scheduling. So nice. He would hit me up and be like, hey, somebody canceled from 2 to 5, 2 to 6, let's do something. And so we'd go in there, and there may or may not have been psychedelics involved, and we may or may not have done them, and we may or may not have recorded all night crazy psychedelic music.
Yeah, it might have never happened, right?
It might have we might have not done that and we may not have had like 30 microphones on the piano.
Oh wow.
Just to see what it would sound like.
It's wild.
It sounded horrible.
I would imagine it'd be really terrible to mix. Yeah.
But we did do is we figured out the 3 that would sound killer together. And so we worked that. We just experimented a lot, and like,
great. That's awesome.
That gave me an opportunity to really hear stuff and to really like have this experience that I really needed to have moving forward. I just didn't know I needed to have it. Then I moved to New York City, golden age of hip hop. I was super,
What year would that have been?
I moved to New York 95, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was like 93 or 92 or 93. I was in Boston. And I moved to New York. And I lived in the Village, and it was like every day I would walk home from work or walk home from dinner and walk through Washington Square Park, and there would just be ciphers everywhere. And I would just wander around and listen to people rapping and like beatboxing and feel the community of it. And then at night, those people would all end up going to these different clubs around and performing and stuff. And it was just like really cool. And it was a super cool renaissance of like jazz music and hip hop, and just it was beautiful. And so I was very fortunate to be in that world. And while I was there, I picked up a mixer that had like a 12-second sampler on it. And then I bought an Akai S1 Sampler, and it was just like a diskette. It's like I could only record like, I think between the two of them I could get, you know, a few sounds, but it was like I had to play. I couldn't record it. I mean, I could record it onto a tape machine, but that was about it. And it was during that time when I really started to understand making like mixtapes and sampling beats and playing drums and sampling that and keys, because my studio mate had a kick-ass Rhodes electric piano, so I would get to mess with that. And my goal at that point was I kind of want to be I want to be a producer. I want to be somebody that people come to for beats. And I guess I made that a reality, you know?
Yeah, you did. You clearly did.
Yeah, and so it started back then. And the cool thing about New York at the time as well was there was also obviously a hugely, I mean, an amazing improv scene and jam scene, and just like, just kick-ass musicians everywhere.
Yeah, I miss that. I used to live there.
Oh, nice.
For a short time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so by being there, I sort of felt a certain way, but to be honest, I just wasn't good enough. Like I mean, I was, but it was just really difficult to break through there, you know? I mean,
so many people doing it. I mean,
yeah. And it's like, I mean, I remember I met this guy who at the time I was like, he's so young. He was like 18 or something. And I was like 26 or 25 or something like that, 24. He was like the best drummer I ever heard.
Yeah. Isn't that that's the best and the worst, isn't it? When you hear somebody on your instrument just killing it and they're half your age and you're like,
Yeah, like I got nothing.
We've all experienced that, man.
Yeah, and it was super humbling and super really, it was super important for me to feel that, because you know, one of my favorite drummers is Tony Williams, and he was able to sound like Tony Williams. I mean, play like that. It's
badass.
Yeah. And so, you know, and previously while I was at Berkeley, I had to deal with one of the best drummers out there. I went to school with Adam Deitch. And so,
oh, no way. From Lettuce.
Yeah. And so I'm like, it was great because he's awesome. He's amazing. And he's a really cool dude. But like, I was so jealous of him. He made me work so hard because he was getting all those gigs. He was the cool one, and I wasn't. And I needed to I needed to step up my game. And so I found that I've always had some sort of bar set above where I am. I don't think that'll ever go away. It's like part of my personality.
I think that's a beautiful thing. You kind of have to have that, right? To drive you and motivate you as an artist. Otherwise, you just become complacent and you're just happy with the norm. I don't think that's healthy, personally.
I don't think it is either, yeah. I feel like there's definitely something about it where it's like, that's advice for people to really remember.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But cool. So did you encounter Ableton at Berkeley, or was this after?
No, I did take I did take a funny class. It was called electronic music. And it was basically just about general MIDI.
Okay.
And that was mind-blowing. Okay. So I'm just going to tell you, like, the only thing we really did was I learned how to play this keyboard and have it trigger a sound from over here.
That was it.
That's what we learned.
It's like a $2,000 class.
Right. Well, luckily it was all part of it.
Yeah. Right.
So I didn't understand very good math. I could only count to 4. And
you only need to count to 127, really.
And that's like a reverse drummer joke. It's like a self-deprecating drummer joke.
Right. That's awesome.
Since I could only count to 4, I didn't really even notice.
Yeah, if you can count to 6, then you would have taken all of Adam's gigs.
Yeah, if only. Damn
Damn it, Adam. Why are you so good?
Well, and the funny part is that now we're friends again, and we re-met when he was playing with Pretty Lights, and and we were there at the same shows a bunch, and and we've reconnected over the years, and it's so cool to see Lettuce is still a band because they started at Berkeley, like they were a band at Berkeley.
I didn't know that. Know that. Okay,
they've been a band forever.
It's a big band too.
Well, not all of them were in it, but like the core members were that.
Right.
But yeah, so then I moved from once I was like got involved in New York and did all that. I actually in '98 moved to San Francisco.
What took you there?
My friend, one of the same guy who was Sean. Sean, he was the guy at Berkeley who had the keys to the studio. He was like one of those guys that he was always like there during this time. This is like 10-year time frame where he knew a lot of stuff about audio and I knew a lot of stuff about drums and stuff. And so, and like kind of started on my journey of creating music myself, like all by myself from start to finish back then. And so I had gotten Pro Tools and I'd gotten a few other things on my shitty computer. And, back then I really wasn't able to do much, but I didn't know it back then. So to me back then I was like mind blown, like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then I got into, so I moved to San Francisco to hang out with some friends and to change it up because New York was too intense. And so I came out here. Within 2 weeks, I was like at a jam session that a friend that had also gone to Berkeley had invited me to. And I met these dudes who, invited me to another thing the next night at their recording studio. And while we were there, they invited me to Burning Man. And I was like, what's that? And they're just like, oh, it's this crazy party in the desert. And I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't know. I was like, it's a gig. And they're like, well, it's, and it's like, we don't pay, but it's like, we'll give you a ticket and, just show up.
You know what year that was?
It was 98. 98,
okay.
And so I went out there, and while I was there, I met Lauren Bassnectar. I met five or six people that I would end up being in a band with, like called the Yard Dogs Roadshow. I met like basically 100 people who were all in my community here in San Francisco.
Awesome.
It was very different than anything I had experienced. More so in the sense that I felt like they really wanted to be my friend. Like they were interested in my life. They asked me questions like nobody had asked me questions before. Like if anybody asks you a question in New York, they probably want to rob you. And so it's kind of like, whoa, all of a sudden people are like asking me questions and like waiting for my answer and looking at me. And I was like, wow, this is, so yeah, by going to Burning Man and then like meeting all these people, that was the beginning of me understanding about community, about helping each other out and really, support and being there, And it gave me an opportunity to perform in this community because, I'm a pretty good drummer. And so I was pretty much a good drummer for that community. And people were like, yeah, like, so I ended up being a bunch of bands. Cool. It was through that community that I got into Ableton Live. I was using, like I said before, I was using Pro Tools, and then I had transferred over to Logic, eMagic Logic. And then Apple bought Logic, and I didn't have an Apple at the time, so I couldn't use it. And so then I switched to Ableton. And then about I guess 2 or 3 years later, I met Dylan Ilgates.
Yeah, he was on the podcast a while ago.
Nice.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, and he stayed. He needed a place to stay. He was performing with Bassnectar, and he needed a place to stay, so he stayed at my warehouse at the time. And we stayed up all night talking about music. And he's like, dude, you got to get it. You got to check this out. Did you know how to do this in Ableton? I'm like, no. He's like,
that sounds like him.
Yeah. He, in 6 hours, he totally changed my life. He was like, oh yeah, all you have to do is this, and this, and this, and he made all these templates on my computer, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? This dude is insane.
Just popped out of nowhere. It's like magical, like Ableton fairy just comes down, just like
And then it was really funny because then I just ended up running into him all the time, like forever, and it's still been going on. That was in like, I don't know. I don't even know when that was. It was a long time ago though.
Yeah.
And he was one of the people who, really showed me about the possibilities of Ableton. He showed me how to DJ in Ableton, and that's been a huge thing for me too. That's cool. And so yeah, ever since those days, I think it was like even like the second or third version of it. It wasn't like it was way at the beginning. And so I really liked it because it was different than the community surrounding it was different than any other software for sure, but definitely any other community. I didn't really have a community that was like super nerdy about Ableton until I met Dylan, and then he showed me about all the forums and all the things and how all the resources you can get from other people. And I just felt like it was a renaissance of music making. And I think I was right about feeling that because it just ended up, it caught fire. It was
so many more communities, like every year, it seems like people find out about Ableton, and the support team is like probably real overwhelmed, especially since COVID, but they always get back to you and they're like really good people. And
they came out. They're awesome. They came out. They've been huge supporters of Beats Antique and just fans and just like cool people. And they came out to our studio here, and like when Ableton 10 dropped, they showed up here and showed me how to use it. Showed me all the new features. White glove service? Like what the hell? This is cool. And then I ended up like 6 months or a year later, I think it was, they came back with like 4 people and did like an in-depth overview with me about like how I'd been using it, what I thought was good, what I didn't like, what I didn't understand, what I want to see more of.
That's really cool.
And it was like a 3-hour session, and it was amazing. And I realized during it that the people who were there doing it, that like one of the people,
you know who it was?
I don't. I forget their names, but one of the people was like one of the top level programmers. Like he's like, what it did was it broke the barrier between this is something I use on my computer, but then there's these humans here who are like telling me all about it. And it's like, this is the first time I felt like a software company that I used was listening to me and wanted to know what I thought.
Yeah.
And wanted to know if any of my friends thought stuff. I was like, you guys are Ableton Live. Like, you're amazing. I'm just some guy uses it, and I'm like, why do you need to go find stuff? And it's like, no, it's because they're really interested. The way the company works and the way that they reach out to their artists and the way that they make me feel like I'm special to them. And that is awesome. It helps.
Yeah. Back to that whole community thing, you do a really good job of doing that. And I had a really great interview with Simon Hayes way back in the day when Live 10 was about to release. Mm-hmm. So it was probably about that same time when they came over and hung out. But he talked a lot about how they just get such an overwhelming amount of like inquiries from users who just want updates and specific features, and like the daunting task of having to decide like, we're not doing this, we are doing this, and here's why we're doing this, and here's why we're not doing it yet, or maybe ever. And
I do think that speaking on that is I think that they around Ableton 10, the development of it rather, I think they really just opened up. They just really opened up to the community and really actually started to use the resources that they had actually fostered to benefit them. And I think that's amazing, because listening to someone talk about it in real time as they're using it is way better than talking to them on the phone and being like, hey, so what did you think? It's like, oh, it was great. It was awesome. It's a little confusing, but whatever. I'll get used to it. It's like, that stops. That's the conversation's over. Yeah. Whereas like in the studio, you're actually there hands on, and you actually, they're seeing like how many inputs I need and how their system might not work for me at some points. And so it's really disconcerting when that happens, because I'm in the middle of making, like at the time we were like doing some really interesting video stuff too. So it was like I needed a system that had better video capabilities, and that's been what they've been doing too. And so it's crazy.
See, a lot of people don't even know that you can edit. And
I do soundtracks in Ableton
with video. Yeah.
Yeah, like I actually do. Sometimes I'll do like the rhythmic edits for something if I need it. But mostly it's like someone sends me a video to score, the music for. I'll throw it into Ableton and use it, and it's great.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Previously, I had to use Logic, and it wasn't as I'm not as good at Logic, so I was kind of like, the sounds are cool. Like I really love all the symphonic sounds they have and stuff, but it's like the flow of it just wasn't working for me. So I had to like look up a bunch of shit as I was trying to create, and it just didn't work. So they improved the functionality in 11 with video, and I'm stoked.
Can you import video into Logic?
Yeah. There's a whole.
I've never tried. I was just curious.
Yeah, there's a whole section of it that's like built for sounds for sound design for film scoring.
Huh.
And there's a lot of tools. I mean, that's the thing, is like Logic really crushes it in that world, and crushes it in their own sample. Like if I could just grab their software instruments or software samples and use them in Ableton, I would be like, yes.
They're stock virtual instruments. You could tell they put a little extra love into those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, their orchestra library that's just the default that you get with it. It's like, it's so good. It's like.
Have you played with the Spitfire Labs that updated with Live 11 in the pack?
No, but I did see, a lot of people complain about targeted ads. And I don't. I actually love them because.
Targeted ads, really? You might be the only person that's told me that.
Well, because I don't look up stupid shit on the internet. So when I get targeted, it's like, it's music stuff, it's art stuff, it's like really stuff that I actually like and look for.
Forgot I wanted to buy this. Thank you, Google.
I've bought a ton of stuff via those ads because they're targeted towards me specifically, and it's like they're right. Like I like little gadgets. I look up little gadgets all the time, so I get all these little gadgets.
Yeah, no, gadgets are fun. I've got a lot of them. Not looking forward to moving all of them when I move out of my apartment, but I
bet you are.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the browser called Brave? This is completely side note tangent thing.
No.
So it was put together by a lot of coders and developers and some white hat hackers to make it like really secure as an alternative to Firefox or Chrome or Safari. But one interesting thing is it turns off and blocks trackers and ads. And I've been using it and I really love it. It looks and feels a lot like Chrome, and they say it's faster. I think it's about the same as Chrome, but you can opt in to watch ads and get paid in crypto, letting them display ads to you, which is interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I just started playing with it, but I thought that was an interesting business model. If you're going to get ads, get paid for it.
Hey, I'm looking it up right now. I'm just gonna full disclosure. Brave?
Yeah, Brave. Yeah. They had, so I'm not 100% sure how that works. It's getting paid out, but they have what's called Brave Rewards. I think that's like their own coin or something.
Nice.
Yeah, I digress. But speaking of the ads thing, I just thought that was interesting.
No, it's cool. I'll just leave that open in the background and look at it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's cool to me when technology says yes to musicians,
yes.
In particular, because it's been a long, rough road. And I think now we're kind of all freaking out because it's amazing. It's like the amount of stuff you can do now.
Yeah, it's wild. And I know you've been doing.
My headphones got unplugged.
No, you're cool.
The amount of stuff that you can do now is just mind blowing to me.
So what's some new stuff that you've been doing that's been really interesting?
Well, I've been using the Ableton follow feature.
Yeah.
Remember on your thing, I stumped you.
I knew, and I knew about that. I think my brain was fried after an hour of teaching a bunch of like people like yourself who are really smart who use Ableton. But you asked me,
who are like, I don't know. I guess I'm a competitor.
yeah,
I grew up also playing sports, so I'm a competitor. I want to win. And so when you were like, when there was like a challenge for that thing, I'm like, oh, I got this.
yeah. For everybody listening who didn't know, like I ended up teaching like a short workshop for a bunch of drummers. Tommy was one of them there, and they played Stump the Certified Trainer, and he stumped me. So yeah, props to you. I'm gonna send you a little baby trophy. It says like,
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah,
I love trophies.
Stump the trainer.
I've got a couple trophies. 1 second.
Oh yeah, we're gonna show them off right now. Let's see these trophies. They better be big. Okay, it's a decent trophy. Is that a basketball? Is that a cheerleader trophy? That looks like a pom pom. Is that
it's a cheerleader trophy. Come on.
It looks like it from here.
No, it's a cheerleader, but it's not for cheerleading.
Okay, so you weren't in like the squad or anything.
No, this is Beats Antique, the Fillmore Auditorium in Denver, Colorado in 2012.
Nice. That's dope.
2012. Sold that out.
That's beautiful. That's a cool venue.
Same show. This is 2011. This one was with I think this one was with the Glitch Mob.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then I've got a couple Red Rocks ones, and then a couple like there's certain venues that do these really neat things, and they give you rewards for doing well at their venues.
That's awesome.
And I didn't realize at the time. I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then it kind of wore off. But then like, now they're sitting in the studio and I'm like, actually, these are really important to me.
Yeah.
These are part of a legacy that I think I'm a part of. And it reminds me of that every day that I come in here and I see these against the wall and I'm just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's just like, what a great thing to remember.
Having those milestones, I think, are like really important for artists when you work your ass off every single day behind the scenes that people don't see. I mean, think about how many hours you've put into
I don't have to think about it. I know.
It's insane, right?
it's yeah. I mean, I think my biggest piece of advice to people starting out is always make a commitment to loving the fact that you're going on this journey. Like, you don't need to make a commitment to music or to practicing it every day, all this stuff, but just like make a commitment to having fun with this and being excited in this journey, because there's so many possibilities. And literally, I mean, especially now, I've seen young artists come up and they have so many great examples to listen to and stuff. And they're able to create music right away. And it's just so fast and it's good.
Yeah.
And they're better than me. And it's awesome. I love it. They have all these other skills that I don't have. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. I guess like I have these skills that are sort of more analog based in a sense, drums and sounds that you hit and the things that you hit and it makes a sound, they're like programmers and they're insane. And I love it. It's super inspiring. And I know some of my counterparts are, a little turned off by all the young, inexperienced touring people, but they're going to learn just like we learned. And, and I think, and Beats Antique loves to support young artists. I mean, it's such an important thing to keep moving. I mean, I'm proud to say that when we have an artist come through and open up for us because we really like their music, it seems like their show that they put on changes because they sort of see what we're doing and it's pretty exciting and it's like visually it's like stimulating and they're like, wow, cool. And then the music goes with that and it's the whole thing. And so I think it's just an important thing. We have access to tools that we can use all the time. And this technology is a huge paintbrush. It's just, and you get to choose what kind of paint's coming out of that and what it looks and sounds like. So
No, that's really cool to hear. That was a great explanation or a way of saying it. I think you guys as Beats Antique create an experience rather than just a show. Like
Yeah.
it's very crowd engaging. Like, and I haven't had the pleasure of actually being to a show, and I got sick for the one time you guys played through Indianapolis, so I didn't get to see you, which sucked. But I've watched a lot of videos, and I mean, you incorporate some wild shit. Like, if nobody has seen your videos, like go to YouTube, type in Beats Antique Live. There was a really good one, the KEXP show. That looked really cool. Had over like 1 million views, and you incorporate like belly dancing with like a medieval kind of bass experimental vibe with like violin and banjos and drums and whatever else, and it's really unique. And having that, not maybe showmanship's not the right word, but like having that live choreography with like the movements and the dance with live instruments, you don't see that very often.
You don't. And it also, even the combination that we have, I think is just really potent. And it's just this, it goes to our ethos, which is like analog and digital. It's like one from the past, one from modern times in the future. It's that sort of vibe of like this sort of earth-driven historic thing that kind of breaks through the cyborg, you know? And so it's like, you know, we realized like most of the technology that we've sort of, I would say, sort of maybe helped pioneer was due to necessity. Like we would literally be playing, you know, like say, for example, like opening up for Bassnectar. Okay, like that's, first of all, incredibly intimidating. Second of all, like it's going to be louder than you. But if you don't hit the low notes on the sound system, it's not going to sound good. It's not going to sound the same. Like if someone plays before you and then you play and then they play, it's like you're going to sound weird.
Yeah.
And it's the sound system's tuned in those scenarios to be this intense thing, right? So for me personally, I was always like, I love upright bass. I love all these acoustic instruments. The sound qualities of those are just outstanding when you're there in the room. It's incredibly hard to record those and have that same feeling. It's just really hard to do. And so when we were making our first album, we had our friend Seth Ford Young come over and play upright bass. And he's an amazing bass player. And we recorded it. It sounded awesome. But then we were like mixing it. And I remember playing it. I remember DJing one of the tracks out at Burning Man and being like, this bass sounds horrible. Like not the playing, but just the audio quality, like the sound of it.
The sonic energy of it, yeah.
And in that moment, I realized what I needed to do when I get home. And what I did was I combined a sine wave with it. Did a high pass on the upright so that it just had like the tactile sounds of the strings on in the movement of it, and like the unique like acoustic bass sound. But then it was subs underneath. It was just like this full thick thing. The guy who mastered that first record of ours he hit me up and he's like, how did you get that bass sound? And I'm like, I'm a genius. And he's
amazing at mixing upright.
I'm just the bee's knees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was like, I just added a sine wave underneath it because it was not hitting the sound system. And he's like, fuck yeah. He was like, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
I've never heard that. And I'm like, yes, that's awesome. Yeah, and it felt groundbreaking. It felt like there was like things happening. And so we would, it's a technique we ended up doing a bunch of, which is just thinking about the sound and what makes it super important acoustically. Like what are the tactile things that make a listener say, this is happening right now. This is like someone playing this. And then how can you manipulate these different instruments to be a little bit more direct, be a little bit more, have some solidity. So when they get onto a big sound system in this big place, like people can hear them and it matches and it goes,
Yeah,
it's good. So
no, that's interesting to hear because you do have like a pretty wild setup. And I would imagine if you just went from like a DJ to you with all these real acoustic instruments, the sonic quality is going to be so different.
And this was, to be clear, this was before we actually started playing live. This was just in our recordings. This is just in our recordings. And then I was like, well, if I can tell my sound guy to be, because then we started headlining sets. We started doing our own headlining shows. And honestly, at the time, I personally wasn't convinced. I mean, I knew that it was possible, but I wasn't convinced that DJing was like standing on stage at a stationary spot, waving your hand around and banging your head.
Just a lot of fist pumps.
Yeah, it's like, is that a headlining set? And it's interesting because it is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For us, we play instruments and there's so much more interactivity that we can do, right? So that's when I was like, I kind of just want to play drums with it. And so we tried it at Lightning in a Bottle and everybody loved it. And we were about to release our third release and I just stuck with it and just kept playing drums live. And we had a sound guy who knew how to mix that really well because we worked with him a lot. Shout out to Rich Canute. He's awesome. Yeah. And so like, it's like, I understand the industry, the live music industry and the record industry. And so like the live music industry, you have to know your shit. You have to have your shit together when you show up at any venue. You have to know exactly what you're doing and you have to be really efficient at it. And when you can do that, you end up going, every time you show up to a venue you've played before, people are like, sweet, yeah, like we know what we're doing. We're very particular about it, and I'm in charge of the whole production of it. And it's like we make sure all the things are right before we get there. And so that when we get there, we can actually show up, load in the gear that they know we're bringing, and the gear that they're supposed to bring is there, and we're all good, and we don't have any issues. And it's incredibly important to know, like, to have experience doing it.
Yeah.
But to also know the difference between playing a club and a venue. Whether that's the financial difference, whether that's the artistic difference, and so the artistic difference is really important to speak on. When you go to DJ at a club, there's a promoter that has that night generally, and you're a part of the lineup that he's already got, including like the house DJs, the upstairs, downstairs, all, it's like a whole thing. It's like it's its whole own industry.
Yeah.
Everyone who's there, they might be there to see, but they're really there to dance. And so it's like, those are the moments where you really need to play to the crowd. You really need to play to what the DJ did before you and stuff like that, right? But then it's like, venues are opposite. Like, you go to a venue and you have the show there and you're headlining, that's your night. Like, you do that night.
Yeah.
And sure, there's moments in venues where there's a promoter and, it might seem like it's a dance party, but the historicness of it is like, this is my night. I'm doing whatever I want. Whoever purchases that night has the say. And so knowing that, coming from the live music world, knowing that you curate each show that you have, we can put that energy into making sure that that's the way we want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting to hear you say, because for me personally, I find myself in that in between the club venues, DJing, and then also playing with like live instruments as well. Pretty rare that you'd see in a standard club setting somebody just show up with a drum set. Like that.
I've done it.
Yeah,
I've done it. Yeah,
you could get away with that for sure. Yeah, I know you could.
Yeah, I mean,
sounds awesome.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it also just depends on where you're at in your career. It's like,
yeah,
I say I've done that. It's like, well, I've done that when we've done stuff on tour and like we've all of a sudden just been at a club and it's like, okay, well, we're playing instruments. But I've also done that like locally, like at 1015 Folsom, where it's like Adam Ohana is throwing the party. It's like all local talent. It's all of us before anyone blew up.
Yeah.
And there's just like 2,000 people there, and it's just our community here in San Francisco. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring my drum set to that night and just rock out. And people loved it. And it didn't sound great, but they didn't give a fuck. It was just more about having expression, different type of expression. I think that's where our community in the Bay really like changed the game in this world that we live in, because the music that we all were making it was pretty groundbreaking and just a lot different than it was before it. And so we had our own thing here, and we owned it. A lot of those people are very successful and are still working in this industry, which is awesome because it's been over 20 years now. You know?
Yeah.
22 years since I met these people.
Wow. It's a good amount of time, man.
I think it might be 24 years.
Happy anniversary. I
keep saying, I get into that mode where I'm like, it's 20 years. And I'll say that for enough years to where it's like, oh shit. It's actually, so now I just did the math. 98 is when I met all these people. So
it's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what's the next thing for you? I mean, you have your Tommy Sidecar Tommy, and then you have Beats Antique. What upcoming projects do you have in both worlds?
Well, we're Beats Antique's releasing a bunch of music this year. We've released one track so far called Surges, and we're about to drop a
good track.
Oh, thank you. We're about to drop a Too Many Zooz remix of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they took that track on.
That sounds dope.
Yeah, it is. It's rad. I love it.
Okay. I'm stoked to hear it. Yeah,
I'm such a nerd for them anyway, and then when we ended up meeting them, and then they ended up wanting to do a song with us, and it's like we went to the studio and collaborated together. It was like they went on tour with us, and it was funny. They didn't show up for one show, and we were really pissed, and they didn't tell us, and I was so mad. It
just was like, surprise, we're not here.
Like they just didn't show up, and like nobody told us, and we're like, what the fuck? And I'm calling people. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? Like what? I thought everything was cool. It's like, what's happening?
It's no good.
But it was. They had to sign an NDA in the middle of the night and go and play with Beyonce.
Oh, whoa. Well, that's a good excuse, I guess. Yeah, that's a pretty good.
And then the next day's news was like, I think it was when Beyonce did the track on for the CMA, for the Country Music Awards.
Oh, okay.
With the Dixie Chicks, I think. And so, and then I'm looking at it, and then there's,
surprise.
There's awesome. Leo playing sax with his pink hair and his crazy outfit, and he's just like grinding like right next to Beyonce.
That's hilarious. Yeah, very unexpected. That's hilarious.
But so like in my point of telling that story is like in the time that we like recorded this song, and then they blew up. Like they blew up. I mean, they were just everywhere. And,
sure.
It all started off with like 3 dudes in the subway playing music for people in public for free.
Yeah.
And they're really good and outstanding individuals, and really all 3 very unique, interesting, rad, expressive badasses.
That's the best, when you can work with people that are just like badass at what they do, but just also fun to hang out with and good people.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Totally. And we're still close, and that was like 6 years ago or something.
So you're dropping a collab with them with Beats and Teak.
Well, that's so they did a remix of Surges, and so that's coming out. And then in a couple weeks we have another song coming out called Desert Dream. And and that's like a modern take on like an old school Beats Antique sound. So I'm super stoked for that one.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Ready.
Yeah. And we've got songs that I think the full album's not going to be done until like, I don't know, the end of the year as far as releasing. It's like we're actually doing something that is both like kind of on trend, but also a response to the way our albums have been received. Is like when you put out an album, there's like 2 or 3 songs that really stand out, and then everything else just sort of falls by the wayside. And then we always hear people being like, "Oh, my favorite song is this like obscure track that like is like got 4 plays on Spotify or something," you know? And it's like,
Always that way. Why is it that way? I swear all the time.
well, because I think people get used to seeing the song and hearing the songs that you push, right? And but then
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
but then it's like all these other things that are there that they don't, you know, and then they find it one day. They're just like listening to the whole thing, and then they hear it, and they're like, "Wow, this really does something for me today," right? And then that makes an imprint. So for me, I think, and really this is something, an idea that really championed by David. You know, he's like, let's highlight each song we release. Like we shouldn't not, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like a constant stream of music coming out all year, you know. So
I know a lot of artists I've talked to on the podcast do that. They'll just do a huge backlog of content and then just strip it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. Because you're not stressing yourself out one at a time trying to keep up, you know, with having share with your following, your audience, and your community.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing that, and that's exciting. And then me as Sidecar Tommy, I've been slowly releasing songs here and there, and I'm going to be releasing some more things. I'm working out some a label situation, and yeah, like I'm also really excited. I've been getting more into sound design and film scoring and stuff like that, and trying to jump into that video game world and make movie trailers and all that stuff, right? So like I think the pause that we've just had from live shows has been a really wonderful catalyst for me to freak out and not know what the hell I was going to do, and then figure it out. By figuring it out, I mean getting back to just making music every day and looking around to see where I fit in. And that's necessary anyway, just because, you know, Beats Antique isn't as busy as we used to be. Like we used to really just go all out, and Zoe now has a baby. And so it's just we're in a different phase.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really cool though, to sort of see how we've grown. And it's been a while since we've released something. So it's been cool to feel that energy again. And you know, so yeah.
That's great, man. I'm glad that you guys are still cranking out new songs. And
yeah. I mean, I'm never stopping. I'm just gonna put that out there. Like, yeah. I mean, I've been making a song every day for a couple years now.
Making like a full track every day?
I mean, no, but like close enough. Like, you know, like getting really just like involved in some idea musically every single day. Like some idea that I actually kind of have on my computer that I can go back to and stuff like that. I really needed to, after spending, I guess it's been about 15 years since we've been really busy on the road, right? And so like not having that time to sit at home or sit here and just chill out has been really taxing. And so having this happen was a blessing in disguise. And I feel like I've been able to hone some of my craft, but also the most important thing is I got back to making music for myself, just for me, something that feels good. And the funny thing is that I've been able to do that while on live stream.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is weird for me and my personality and the things that I've suffered from in my life. Like, you know, just the anxiety stuff and just not knowing with 100% what's going on ever. And so it's like, I never thought I would be able to do that. And it's been one of the most beneficial things I've done.
Well, doing the live streams is probably awesome for getting really quick feedback. Like if you're working on a track or something and you're live streaming, which a lot of artists are doing now, it's instantaneous feedback. People be like,
and to be honest, like because I've I'm not like it's not I'm not doing it to gain a bunch of followers on it and stuff like that. It's low key, and so I'm not like marketing. Sorry, I'm not marketing it a bunch. I'm not forcing it down people's throats.
I'll market it for you.
Sure, go for it. But so like the cool thing about it, that fact is that it's like a really kind of cool little insular community that of people who hang out every day with me, and the feedback they give me is like it's gold.
Yeah,
it's gold. It's just like somebody in their house being like, "This is beautiful," or "This is kind of scary," or whatever. Like, you know. And like today, I ended with like a 30-minute. Really beautiful, deep, like ambient piece, all done on my Moogs, and it's like
you have some beautiful Moogs sitting around there. What kind of Moogs do you have?
I have the Mother 32, the Subharmonicon, and the DFAM, and the Slim Fatty.
Those are all beautiful.
Yeah,
they're all gorgeous in the Moog family. I have a Sub 37 sitting next to me. That's my baby.
Nice.
I love her. Yeah. Maggie. The
nice.
Moog. She's my girl.
I have a friend who's about to get one of those. He lives in Asheville. He's like burdened by like, he lives down the street, like down the block from the Moog factory. So he's like burdened by that.
He drives by it every day and he's like, someday. No,
he slowly walks by it and then he'll go in.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh God.
Like, I need everything.
Actually, he happens to be an insanely talented photographer who has taken the most iconic pictures of us in our history. His name's Sean. Sick Images.
Shout out Sean.
Yeah, it's been a 15-year friendship of photographs with him. So
see, that's the thing I've been learning is just having a team. You know, having a team to work with is everything.
Well, and it's easier than you think. And the reason why I say that is because it once you get into the process of working on stuff, people come out of the woodwork and show themselves, and you're like, oh wow, you're perfect for this, and then they're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of energy here, like I can do this, and so developing a team is hugely important, especially if you're going to be touring and stuff like that, you know. Like our team is our family.
Yeah. And it shows too with the energy you have on stage. You can tell that you guys are having a good time.
Yeah, even if we're not.
Even if you're not, you're like in it together, right?
Yeah. Like I'll just say the last tour we did before the pandemic was like the actual like full tour we did, which was like get on a bus and go around and stuff.
Yeah.
It was during the polar vortex. And so not only that, but we had this like really messed up scenario happen on it too. So like there was like crazy internet stuff happening that we had to maintain. We had to like take care of and stuff. It was hell. It was like -45. Like we had to postpone a couple shows and like snowstorms and chaos. And it was just like, it was hard. It was the hardest tour. And because we were all joined in it together, I mean, we ended up naming it like on our set list and stuff, like we made it, you know, like we made it, we got here.
Yeah.
You know? So every night it was that feeling of like, wow, we actually got through all this stuff, snow, cold weather. Like we had to have our bus on high idle, which is horrible for the environment. But if we didn't, it would have frozen. Oh. Like it would have, the diesel would have turned into gel, which is what happens when it gets cold.
That's wild.
And then it would just destroy the bus, and we wouldn't have been able to get anywhere. So crazy. There's a lot of little funny things that you learn when you do this all the time, and and for anybody who does that, they kind of understand what I mean by if like shit was just shitty that day, but here we are at a show and we're like, yeah,
made it.
And then we laugh. Like I look at David and it's just like the amount of times I've looked over at him and laughed my ass off over something totally internal, like internal funny shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, what's up, dude? Here we go. Like
That's
Here
awesome.
we are again. You know, that goes for like playing hilarious, like underproduced festivals, you know, like in different countries where people are like, yeah, come through. It's a great festival. And we get there and it's like, what?
It's like a guy and like 20 of his friends in a backyard.
Like you got me a kid's drum set. Like what? This is funny. You know, like it's just, it's hilarious. Like
I can laugh because I've been there and it hurts, but it's hilarious. Yeah.
well, that's the best part about honestly being in a band and having, you know, bandmates is that you're not there by yourself. And even if it is like a DJ set or something, it's like at least we still have each other, you know. And when we don't, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And so like when I go out and do solo stuff or something, it's like a lot harder because I got to take care of everything myself, and I don't have someone to share that hilarious experience we just had getting to the place.
Right.
Drivers we've had, like I've had to actually like been like, you need to pull over. I'm going to drive. Like you're wasted. Like like you can't.
No.
Yeah, like I'm gonna jump out and probably save my life if you don't pull over.
That's crazy.
Yeah, little weird things like that, like funny, like things where you're just like, how would you even think that? And it's like people are just in their moment of doing their thing, and just you got to be aware. And
there's some crazy people out there.
I mean, yeah, I think we're all crazy. It's just like how much can you like pull it together for the moments when you need to pull it together for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
That's a good way to see it for sure.
Yeah, because then anyone can kind of be okay in a moment. You know, you don't have to like. Because I know that I need moments sometimes.
Oh, for sure, definitely, same here. Especially being extroverted and introverted.
Yeah.
But it seems like these live streams have been a good way for you to connect with more people. And how often do you do that?
Monday through Friday, 10 to 12.
Okay.
Like in the morning.
Wait, Monday and Friday or Monday through Friday?
No, Monday through Friday. Like if you go onto my Twitch, there's like
a lot of video.
If they didn't delete all the videos on demand, like
Snap.
after 60 days, there would be like 6 months worth of videos.
That's a lot of video, man. Congrats, for real.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that myself. That's fantastic.
It took you know, and I'll tell you straight up why, like what happened. Because it's a pretty interesting story. Yeah. Right at the onset of the pandemic, I went on to Facebook Live to test my sound. I had been messing with my sound and trying to get it to sound good live. Basically just my drums. And I went on there to test it. I feel like I almost had I think I might have had a heart attack. I was so out of nowhere petrified. I had this fear and anxiety come into me that I had never felt in my life. I had never felt this. I didn't understand it. I was at I played in front of thousands and thousands of people. I didn't understand it. I mean, I've been doing this my whole life. Like I've been playing music forever. There's been no other version of me.
Yeah.
I've had some shows definitely that were like way too big for my britches, you know, and I had to get up there and I had to fucking play, and it was scary. I was fearful, and thank God, like somewhere throughout that experience, I was able to find my grounding and perform and come out on top, you know? And yeah, this was one of those moments where I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. I was like, why am I so scared? What am I scared of? Like, what is this fear coming from? And so it took me like 8 months of literally trying to plan like my streaming behavior.
Really?
By like setting up cameras and doing all this stuff in practice. And it's just like, I would get to that moment where I hit start streaming and I just fucking couldn't do it. I literally have never felt like that ever in my life. And
I can relate to that so well.
Yeah.
I really
can. And you know what I'm finding is it's really common. It's so common. It's like the most common thing. And and just advice to anybody who is feeling like that or anything like that or suffers from anything like that. I mean, I still feel it every day, but what gets me through is my pride that I did it yesterday and that I'm doing it again today and that I'm like dedicated to it.
Showing up.
And then it's the response that I'm getting. A small group of people have been huge for me. Like it's just out of my mind. I mean,
well, I mean,
so
you're
grateful for it.
You're hella talented too, so that helps. But
well, let me speak honestly about that. Like, I've done this for a long time. I've got plenty of these stupid trophies and this posters and shit, and like a bunch of sold out shows and just all this confidence. Right? It's like all this proof that I've worked really hard. I mean, my studio. I don't own a house, and I don't own an awesome car, but what I do have is an investment in my art, right? And so there's a lot of pride in that. Like, I'm very proud of this keyboard. I'm very proud of these things that I have, and it's so to me, I'm like, why would I ever feel like the way I felt? And it's helped me come to terms with some of my own anxiety and just some of my own like, doubtfulness about myself in any given moment that can come up, and just really how to deal with it. And I think that the best advice I could give is just to hit start streaming and go on there and be yourself and be honest and be
authentic.
Be as messed up as you need to be. Like,
I think the whole live streaming thing has definitely been hard for a lot of people, and it's really easy to smell bullshit more now online than it is ever. I think it's very true. People are getting smarter about calling that out. But when people are like authentic and doing live streams like yourself, it's refreshing. It's really refreshing to hear and to see that, for sure. Especially for somebody like you who's been doing it for so long, just being able to see somebody who just like is genuinely just giving out there, like putting a lot of work and just pushing it out, trying to connect with other people. Like, that's a beautiful thing for sure. And
and wanting and needing to connect with other people.
Yeah.
Not just like being like, oh, I can connect with people now. It's like, no. I need to. I want to, and I need to. I really need to, because I'm just not connecting with anyone. And like a lot of my friends have moved away, and I didn't even really realize it until, lockdowns. And then I'm like, oh,
yeah,
wow, like I don't really have a huge community here. And it's changed a lot. I've been gone for my community, and so I realized like I needed to sort of build another community.
I have a decent amount of friends who are playback engineers, so it's not weird for them to be gone on tour for 200 days out of the year.
Yep,
that's normal. And so when you're gone that long, it's hard to maintain friendships back home and the people in your local community. That's a real thing for a lot of people.
And also it's like, okay, so this is like a unique moment, right? It's like none of us were able to do that thing that we like really excel in, and for money. And we had to reinvent what we were going to do and how we were going to be and all this stuff, right? And so I personally didn't have to take care of myself for quite some time. I hadn't slept in my bed for a continuous 2-month period for about roughly 20 years.
It's a long time.
Okay. Like not like in a bad way. Just it's kind of like I always had a place to go. I was like, okay, in 2 days or 4 days or whatever, next week, I'm going to go here, 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 and here. And then I'm going to come back and then I'm going to here, 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 and there. And all those little gaps that I'm home, I'm like, I'm fitting in all the stuff that I need to finish in those moments. And it's incredibly encapsulating. And then I'm just, last March, I'm just like sitting there.
Yeah. It's like 100% to zero real fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is fascinating. This is so fascinating. Like what can I do? I'm just not very good about planning. I'm like, oh, I should get food. I should like buy food because these places are closed. And so I can't go there.
Yeah. Food's important for sure.
Yeah. Like stupid stuff, like really stupid stuff. So it really brought me down to like my root person. And I really needed that. I really needed to get back in touch with myself and really re-up. I'm about to be 50. I've had a lot of experiences, and you know, touring is hard, and I'm not sure I want to continue to just tour all the time as my only source of income. So it's like I had to start over and make up some new shit and just to go from 0 to back to 100 with different things.
Yeah. And some of those things like using OBS and like doing live streams and recording some video. Last time we talked before today, you were talking about how you've gone way deeper into video and recordings and stuff. What kind of cameras? What does your setup look like, real quick?
So I have my two main good cameras are the Zcam E2 M4, which is a Micro Four Thirds cinema camera. Fucking beautiful. It's this one. So hold on.
Hit the button. Let's see it.
I will.
Okay.
So that's this camera.
Like that.
And then my Sony's at home because it's kind of messing up, so I need to actually fix it. But I have like a Sony A6300.
Nice.
And the camera that I'm using here is on a new product that I supported this company called ObsBot on Indiegogo. And this is a point tilt zoom 4K USB cam.
Looks good.
So I can actually have little settings where I'm like, oh, check out what I'm doing on my desk. Boop.
Hey, look at that.
And they're like, oh, you want to look over here to this gear?
Oh,
nice.
Wow. So it literally just like frames it and zooms in on certain parts. That's interesting. Yeah. For anybody listening, it's like tilting the camera lens into different directions.
Right. And so these are called ObsBot, OBS bot.
Interesting. Looks good.
And they're great, and they're pretty affordable and whatnot.
USB is nice, so you don't have to buy a capture card for your video.
Yeah, and so I have an Elgato
Camlink
HD60S Plus, and then I got a few Camlinks, the Camlink 4Ks, and then
I have one.
Yeah, and so basically I put all of that into OBS, and then on the audio side, I've got 4 Apollo units, UAD Apollo units, and
got 4 of those. Those are that's nice.
Yeah, I have 3 8Ps and 1 16, so we have 48 in.
Great.
Yeah,
I love my Apollo.
And that covers 3 rooms in this studio, and so I can go into all the rooms and record. There's like snakes out there and all that stuff. So it encapsulates the whole space. I can send audio to 3 different sound systems. I can stream it. I put it all together through Loopback, and I just take my instances of Loopback and have them each represented. So I have an Ableton instance of Loopback, and I use that as an input. I have my drum station, and I use that as an input, and then I have my vocal channel, and I use that as an input. So then those 3 channels I can mute and unmute. So if I'm talking to someone and like I want like, you know, I want to have my, you know,
whatever, switch different Apollo.
Well, like I can like listen to stuff and and nobody can hear it when I'm like on a stream or something.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like I can monitor.
You have to fart real loud or something. You can just mute that if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just did.
Yeah.
No, so
that's hilarious. For anybody listening who doesn't know what Loopback is, real quick, it's just like an audio routing software on your computer that you can route things internally or externally. So yeah, I like using that.
Yeah, it's a great tool. It really helps get things from audio application to audio application. Yeah. It just makes a virtual connection between those different things. And so then I have like about 7 or 8 different scenes on my OBS that I actually use. I have ones that have like so here's one, and that has like music into it. It's like a whole ambient piece behind it.
I like that.
And then I got the trophies.
Hey.
And then I got our, you know, logo and
good stuff. Very nice. It's like claymation. That was cool.
Yeah, so those are for anybody who's seen the video for Beelzebub, those are from the Beelzebub video that we made with Les Claypool.
That's dope.
Yeah, Webster Colcord, the one of the sweetest people I've met. He's also an amazing animator, and he did that video for us. He works on Family Guy and a bunch of like high level stuff. And so he just like, he got a gig where he needed to make, he was going to be doing claymation. And so he needed to get his studio up to par for that. And it meant his whole art space had to transform into his claymation studio. And so he was able to, because he needed to test it, and that gig that he got was like high money, he was able to give us an incredible situation where basically he was down to just make us the video.
That's so cool. Is that on YouTube?
Yeah, please check it out.
What's it called?
It's called Beelzebub.
Beelzebub. I mean, I need to watch that. I missed that. I haven't seen it.
Oh man. Well, these figures, hold on. These figures right here.
A lot of people won't be able to see this unless they go to YouTube to watch it.
It's okay. It's okay. You can see it. And those figures are the actual figures from the video. You'll see these now, and then when you go watch the video, you'll be like, oh my gosh.
That's fantastic. One of my buddies is like into claymation and doing small sets. And it's even in Hollywood, like it's crazy. A lot of these artificial scenes or settings, environments are built in these like small corners of a room, like just a corner of a room. And you just make this tiny little city look super real, get the right lighting, the right camera, and you can make it look insanely real. It's wild.
Well, and it's funny too, because you say it that way. I mean, what is real when it comes to film? It's all manufactured. So like everything we've ever seen is just like
a lot of it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So real is actually like us. A lot of times it's a set and it's a camera and it's certain. So there's like technical things you can learn about it to make that so. And so and I love photography. I love like visual art and stuff. So for me, like, you know, making a fun stream is fun for me. I really actually want to get way crazier. And so I'm going to launch my own stream. Then I won't be like under Beats Antique Stream, and I'll be under my own. And then I think I'll be able to have more fun with it. Yeah. And just because then I'm not like also representing two other people. And,
sure.
You know,
yeah.
Because now I'm into it. Now I'm like, okay, this is something I'm doing, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to be going on YouTube a bunch and just sharing my process. I make music all day, and it's fun to share that. And there's some really neat stuff comes about because of it.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you keep doing that because, like I said, you're super talented and
thank you.
You're a really good guy. So this has been awesome hanging out and like hearing your process and stories, and really appreciate your time, man. We're coming up on 2 hours, which is wild. This is one of the longer ones I've done in a while. So that's.
But you're going to edit this, right? I mean, or no?
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
Yeah, I usually do.
Can I double check it?
Yeah, if you want to, totally.
I would love to.
Yeah, no worries.
Because sometimes, sometimes I'll say something in the moment, and then, and then I'll listen to it after and be like, maybe insecure about it or something.
Oh, I hate hearing my own voice. I can tell you that right now for sure. I already know.
Look, that's one of the main. And another tip.
Yeah.
If you're about to go get into all this live streaming stuff, do yourself a gigantic favor and learn how to get over that.
Yeah.
And in fact, the way you do that is to practice and to talk to yourself, because you're in here talking to yourself by yourself, and there's only people that you can see by them typing and then little number, and that number is not even right on Twitch. So it's like you don't even know how many people are there, and you just need to keep going. And so it's really important to film yourself and to think about a little bit about a few different things. I would even like write it on a little piece of paper here on the side that nobody can see. Mm-hmm. And you can always look at that and talk about something on that piece of paper in moments when you just don't have anything to say. And you're just like, oh gosh, this is bad.
I have to prepare like that. Otherwise my ADD brain just puts me in a loop. I end up talking about 4 billion things, sidetrack. But yeah.
Well, but that's like, and I'm going to say this again, but that's authentic to you. And that's like actually who you are. So maybe there's part of that might try freestyling and just letting it go. And that's what I've done. And it's been really helpful to me to open up and to just be like, this is me. I'm crazy. I'm a crazy person. Like stuff that goes on in my head that's, maybe other people have it too. Maybe it's normal. Maybe I'm not crazy. It doesn't matter. It's my judgment on myself. I'm like, I'm insane. And I need to learn how to not feel insane when I feel insane.
Yeah.
And it's not lying. It's just, I also need to understand too, how to say, hey, everyone, I'm feeling crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to turn off my mic and play music and just get myself to a different place, and I'll talk when I can.
Yeah. And just get weird with it and respect the moment. Yeah.
That's sort of what happened today. Like I kind of ran out of things to say. And I was also like, I was making this like funk tune, and I became super detached from it. And I was just like, cool, this is fun. This is it played its course.
Yeah.
And so then I needed to get on to the next thing, and I just couldn't, my brain was blank. And so I just like hit a random sample and just, started flailing a little bit. And then I ended up making this like 30-minute beautiful Moog piece. And so it was just like, because Moogs are one note at a time, so it's really, in order to build a chord, you have to play it 3 times. So I've been really excited about doing one simple line and then taking the MIDI, because I'm using Ableton as my MIDI host, right? And so like I'm sending MIDI out to the Moogs and back through audio into Ableton. So like
with an external instrument.
Yeah. So like with just the normal, with just I got a Motu device. So it's just boom. Okay. I don't even have to do a separate instrument or nothing. It's just a MIDI channel. Okay. And so so it's pretty cool, because what ends up happening is I end up just doing this really easy pattern, one note at a time, and then I take the MIDI, I record the audio of that, and then I take the MIDI, raise it up an octave, and either double what I just recorded or move it over like an 8th note or a quarter note or something. And then I do another one at the next octave, and it ends up being this really beautiful arpeggio that's just really cool that this machine actually does. But to interface the way it does it on its own with Ableton is actually pretty confusing for Ableton. So it's my hack that I end up loving, because then I can also like edit that MIDI really easily and re-perform it in and stuff like that. So it's a really neat flow that I have. And so I built like 8 tracks of Moog Mother 32.
Oh wow! I bet that sounds thick.
It's just huge.
Yeah,
it sounds huge. Yeah, and what's really cool was that, because that's analog tone with like going through an eventide delay. It's like space delay. It's lush as hell.
Oh, I love that, man.
And I went from a funk tune to that. And the users in the chat were just like, wow, this is so beautiful. This is perfect right now. I really needed this. And like one person was like, I've been on the hold with the dental surgeon, about this horrible surgery I have to have on my face, and I'm scared. And this music is actually making me feel way better.
Really?
And it's just little things like that, to be honest. Like that means more to me than like a bunch of people listening to my records or a bunch of people showing up to a show or something. It's like, to be honest, like the small moments when it's just like one person and they just let you know how they're feeling and they're honest with you. Mm-hmm. And then they tell you that your music or your creativity helps them.
Best.
There's nothing better, to be honest. Like you can take all the money, all the stuff away from me, everything. You won't have much money. You'll have a lot of stuff, but you won't have much money.
Well, that says a lot about you, man. That says a lot about you.
Yeah. Well,
that's great. We need more people like that. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And that would be my most important asset, I think, is connection with people. That's why I was so surprised that I had such a hard time getting on the live thing. But I knew in my heart, like, this is kind of like I'm kind of built for this. Like, I'm the type of personality that's for this. So like, because I found myself going on YouTube and just like zoning out on somebody's videos and, their live stream and stuff. And I've learned so much from that and from those experiences, whether it's like in the industry that I'm in or completely something so totally different. I mean, like I've definitely listened to way too many things that is like, I just kind of like the way the person talks. I think they're funny the way they present their thing. I have no idea what they're talking about as far as the details, but I don't think it matters. And also it's someone who's there who are making a statement saying, I've gotten over my fear of anxiety and I'm doing this. And to me, I'm inspired by that. Like because of these experiences, I'm now inspired by different things.
Yeah.
And so that's been super cool too. And I really want to stress the fact that taking on new challenges when you're already good at something is incredibly rewarding. Even if it's just the smallest little change that you make. It's just taking something on that you're not 100% on is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've neglected that. I've neglected that action for many years in myself. And so I'm back to it and I feel great.
Hell yeah, man. Glad you're back. That's good.
Hell yeah.
That's good. Have you ever heard of a book called The War of Art? Talks a lot about what you just said. It's the whole.
No.
Yeah. I've had several people on the podcast mention it to me. And so I bought it and I'm like, I've been on page like 42 for a while. So I need to get back and reading it, but it talks about resistance. And how resistance is like the main thing that keeps you from reaching your goals. And usually before you have a big breakthrough, resistance is the greatest.
Yeah.
And I find that really true. He breaks it down in tons of different life scenarios, but it's
well, and then also speaking of that, it's like you as a music maker, a producer, a songwriter, despite what anyone thinks, like you get told no more than anything. You're not good enough. You don't make the good enough music. You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. You're not good at this thing. You can't, and it's like, that's me getting feedback from huge projects that if I got it would change my life but I didn't, Yeah. And then that's real. And so, we're told no so much that we get used to it. And then when someone says yes, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to be better at hearing no and be better at getting closer towards yeses.
That's great, man. Well, I'm glad you did because a lot of people wouldn't have been able to hear the music you put out if you.
This is true.
Yeah. So worked out. But, Hell yeah, man. It was so good hanging out with you, Tommy. You're a great guy. We should catch up another time for sure. And
for sure. Anytime.
Have a drink in real life someday.
Sure. Yeah. I'll be, when are you headed to Denver?
I'll be there at the end of March.
Ah, okay.
So
I'm going to be there on Valentine's, I think.
Oh, well, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I mean,
that's dope. Yeah.
Luckily we're going to be making money doing a private event. So that's cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, I'll definitely catch a show eventually. I know it's long overdue, but
yeah, I mean, we just played in Denver, so it's going to be a little while. I think we're playing a Rise if you want to go to a Rise.
A Rise? Okay.
Yeah, Rise Festival. Yeah.
You know when that is?
I forget, but it's sometime this summer.
Yeah,
it's sometime in the summer, and it's a wonderful festival. If you haven't been, I highly suggest going. It's
haven't.
It's really cool. It's got great music, really great vibe. It's got the Colorado homies there. Yeah. But what makes it stand out is there's a lot of talks and there's a lot of like interaction with people.
Yeah.
And so like last time we went, me and David did this really cool collaboration with some of the people from Rising Appalachia, the musicians. And we just ended up like having this huge, awesome, like beautiful music making time. It was great. And it was all about, incorporating world music and
nice.
It was just really neat. And so we had people from a couple different cultures there who were musicians who we were playing with. And it was like, it was magic. It's beautiful. And it was something that you're literally going to only be able to see there. And that was just the thing I was involved in. There was like that stuff going all day long for like 4 days.
So cool.
So it's a really great opportunity for people to connect with the community there and really see what's the potential is there, you know, in the Colorado region to rock.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Awesome.
I'm going to put that on the calendar when we hang up. Sounds fun. Yeah, collaborating with other people in different genres or cultures, it's the best.
It's the best.
The best thing ever. I love it.
I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot around the world and fortunate enough to meet some just really beautiful, amazing musicians from different cultures and truly experience what, you know, what it feels like to, you know, to go to somebody's house and record them and give them money and pay them money to record something that I wrote for them to record. And we do it like in the barn or something, you know, and it's like, and it doesn't matter where it is. Yeah. It's like an authentic exchange. And, and I think, you know, some of those moments are my most favorite moments ever. And I also, in all those moments, I learned something really deep about either that culture, mostly that culture, plus like the personal life of someone who is submersed in that culture and is an influencer in that culture. That's magic. If you whatever you do, people out there, go travel, go meet people, go express yourself, and take in all the world has to offer. There's so many beautiful souls out here with amazing ears to listen to you and for you to listen to them. Yeah. So get out there and make it work, make life beautiful.
Go do some shit. Yeah.
Yep.
I can't wait. Cool, man. Well, this has been a great, inspiring hangout. So
totally,
I'll definitely send it to you before it goes live. Once again, for anybody listening, where's the best place to connect with you online?
So there's @Beats Antique on Instagram and all the stuffs. So just look at that. Twitch is Beats_Antique. Is the Twitch channel I've been on, and my personal Instagram is @Sidecar Tommy, and same with my Facebook. And sidecartommy.com, beatsantique.com, all those things. Just look us up, give us a like or a follow or whatever. And
I'll include all the links in the show notes, everybody listening. So go find Tommy Beats Antique on the interweb on all the links in the show notes. Yeah, dude. Once again, good hang with you.
You too.
So good catching up with you. Appreciate your time. This is one of the longer episodes I've done, so that's a good sign. But
good.
Yeah. I'll hit you up very, very soon, and looking forward to seeing you play live eventually.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Dope, man.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Always. Have a blessed week.
You too.
All right, peace. Big thanks to Tommy for hanging out. Everybody check out the links in the show notes if you want to follow him and stay up to date with the latest things he's doing. Also, once again, would love to have you part of the Discord community. If you want to hang out with me, we can nerd out about Ableton Live production stuff. I'm always sharing new things and tips and devices and tutorials or whatever I'm finding. So just go and join the community if you want to at liveproducersonline.com/Discord. Be happy to hook you up with a special deal. You can learn more details about that at liveproducersonline.com/buyableton. Much love to all of you out there, and I will see you in the next episode. Later.